Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Advance. I am so happy to see you here today. I am Jessica, and I am really excited because today we are going to talk about something that I know causes a lot of stress for so many of you. You tell me all the time in the comments and in our emails that you know the grammar, you have a good vocabulary, you can read a book in English perfectly fine, but the moment a native speaker starts talking to you, or when you try to watch a movie without subtitles, everything just seems to turn into one big, long, confusing sound. It feels like they are speaking a completely different language, right? You catch a word here and there, maybe a name or a place, but the sentence just doesn't click in your brain fast enough. It is frustrating, and I completely understand that feeling. But today, I want to change that for you. We are going to look at how to understand spoken English faster. And I promise you, it is not about learning more words. It is about learning how English speakers actually move their mouths and how they connect sounds together. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, maybe put on your headphones so you can really hear the sounds I am making, and let's dive right into this. The first thing we need to talk about is why spoken English sounds so different from the English you read in your textbooks. When you learn English in school, or when you look up words in a dictionary, you see the written word. And you probably pronounce it very clearly in your head, maybe even pronouncing every single syllable perfectly. But in real life, native speakers are lazy. I mean that in a nice way. We want to save energy when we speak, so we take shortcuts. We squash words together. We change sounds. This is called connected speech. If you try to listen for every single separate word, you will always be behind because the words are not separate anymore. They are joined. Let me give you a very common example that confuses people. Imagine you are at a coffee shop and the barista asks you a question. In a textbook, it would be, "What are you going to have?" That is 4 words, but when I say it naturally at a normal speed, it sounds like, "What you going to have?" Did you hear that? The what are became whatcha, and the going to became gonna. If your brain is waiting for the clear what and the clear are, you miss the bus because the speaker has already moved on to the next part of the sentence. So the first step to listening faster is to stop listening for separate words and start listening for chunks of sound. You need to train your ears to hear these patterns. Let's look at another really common sound change that happens all the time. This is the linking sound. When one word ends in a consonant sound and the next word begins with a vowel sound, native speakers will almost always link them together so there is no pause. For example, take the phrase, "check it out." If I say it slowly, check it out. But at normal speed, it sounds like cheeky doubt. The K at the end of check jumps over to the start of it, and the T at the end of it links to out. It becomes one smooth flow. Check it out. This happens with words ending in D or T a lot. Think about the phrase, bad apple. It doesn't sound like bad apple. It sounds like bayed apple. The D connects the 2 words. If you are listening for a pause between bad and apple, you won't hear it, and you might get confused trying to find where one word ends and the next begins. So when you are listening, practice. Try to imagine the words as a flowing river, not separate stones. They flow into each other. This is why listening to English podcasts like this one is so helpful, because you can hear that rhythm over and over again until it starts to feel natural. Now I want to talk about something that is a little bit secret, a magic trick that helps you understand faster. It is something called the schwa sound. You might have heard of it. It is that very short, lazy sound, like the A in about or the in teacher. In English, many small words like to, for, and at change their sound when they are in a sentence. We don't say the strong vowel sound, we say the schwa. For example, the word to. By itself, it sounds like to, with a strong oo sound. But in a sentence like I went to the store, we don't say I went to the store. We say I went to the store. It is very fast and very quiet. The word for becomes fur. This is for you becomes this is for you. Understanding that these small words are not pronounced strongly is huge because it means you don't need to stress about hearing them clearly. Your brain actually fills them in automatically if you hear the main words. If I hear I went store, my brain knows there is a to in there. So stop focusing so hard on the small words. Focus your energy on the content words, the words that carry the meaning, like nouns, verbs, and adjectives. The small words are just the glue holding them together, and they are often very quiet and short. Let's try a little practice right now to see if you can hear this. I am going to say a sentence at a normal, natural speed. I want you to close your eyes and just listen to the rhythm. Don't try to write it down word for word yet. Just feel the music of the sentence. Ready? Here we go. I am going to ask him for a ride. Okay, let's break that down. Did you hear I am? Probably not. You probably heard I'm. Did you hear going to? No, that was gonna. Ask him probably sounded like ask him because the H in him often disappears in fast speech. And for A probably sounded like Farah. So the whole sentence sounded like, I'm gonna ask him Farah ride. If you were reading that, it looks like a totally different language. But when you hear it, you understand the meaning because you recognize the chunks. We are going to do this more today because the only way to get better at this is to hear it, realize it is normal, and get used to it. You are not doing anything wrong. The speakers are just blending sounds. Another big reason why listening can be so hard is that native speakers use a lot of idioms and phrasal verbs. You might know the word run, and you might know the word into. But when I say, I ran into my friend at the supermarket, it doesn't mean you physically hit your friend. It means you met them unexpectedly. If you are trying to translate run and into literally in your head while listening, you are going to miss the meaning because you are too busy processing the literal words. To understand faster, you have to stop translating. I know that is scary to hear. Translating in your head is a safety blanket. It feels safe, but it is also extremely slow. You cannot keep up with a speaker if you are translating every word back into your native language and then translating your answer back into English. By the time you do that, the conversation has moved on. Instead, try to connect the English words directly to the image or feeling in your mind. When I say apple, don't think of the word for apple in your language. Just picture a red, shiny apple. Train your brain to go straight from English sound to meaning. It takes time, but it is the only way to truly get faster. Let's talk about a specific listening strategy that I love. It is called predicting. When you are having a conversation, you can often guess what the other person is going to say before they even say it, based on the situation. Context is your best friend. If you are at a train station and someone walks up to you and starts speaking, even if you don't understand every word, you can guess they are probably asking about the time, the train schedule, or directions. If you are in a restaurant, you know the waiter is going to ask about your order or how the food is. If you prepare your brain for the likely topic, you understand much more because your brain is ready to fill in the gaps. For example, if I say, "The weather is terrible today. I think I'm going to stay home and..." You can probably guess the next word is read, watch a movie, sleep, or relax. You don't need to hear the word perfectly to know the general idea. Use the context around you to help you predict what is coming next. It reduces the pressure on your ears. I want to share a story with you about a student named Maria. Maria used to get so nervous when she had to speak to English speakers. She would panic if she missed one word. She thought that if she didn't understand 100% of the words, she failed. But one day she realized that even native speakers don't hear 100% of the words. Sometimes we are in a noisy cafe or we are tired or the speaker mumbles. We just guess. We use the clues we have. Maria started focusing on just the main words and ignoring the ones she missed. She stopped asking people to repeat every single sentence. And guess what? She started having much better conversations. People thought her English was better, not because her grammar improved, but because she was more confident and she kept the conversation flowing. She wasn't stuck in her head translating. She was listening for the big picture. And that is what I want you to do. Aim for understanding the main idea, the gist, not the exact translation of every preposition and article. Now let's do some more specific practice with phrases that sound different than they look. I am going to say a phrase and then I will explain what is happening to the sounds. This is going to be like a mini workout for your ears. Here's the first one. Do you want to? Say that in your head. Do you want to? But when I say it fast, it becomes dojawana or even juwana. Juwana, come with us. It sounds like one word. Juwana. If you hear that, you might be looking for a word that starts with J, but there isn't one. It is just do you running together. Here is another one. Give it to me. Slowly, give it to me. Quickly, give it to me. The V connects to it, and the T at the end of it combines with to make a ta sound. Give it to me. It sounds like give it to me. This is very common in casual American English. We swallow the ends of words to get to the next one faster. What about the phrase, I have gotta go? That is a lot of syllables, but we shorten it to I've gotta go, and then even faster, I gotta go. You will hear I gotta go all the time, or I have to go becomes I have to go. I have to go. Do you hear how the have to changes to hafta? The V sound turns into an F sound because it is next to the T. It is just easier for the mouth to say it that way. If you are listening for have to, you might miss it because you are listening for a V. But if you listen for hafta, you will recognize it immediately. These little changes are what make English sound fast, but once you know the rules, it actually makes sense. It is not random, it is physics. It is how our mouths move most efficiently. Let's move on to something called elision. That is a fancy word for when a sound disappears completely. A very famous example of this is the word next. When we say next door, we don't say the T in next. We say next door. The T is gone because it is between two other consonants and it is too hard to say clearly. So we drop it. Ask him becomes ask him. We drop the H. Most of the time, if a word like he, him, her, or his comes after a word, we drop the H. Tell her becomes tell her. Let her go becomes let her go. I saw her becomes sour. If you are listening for the sharp H sound, you won't hear it. You need to listen for the change in the vowel sound. This is why listening to songs can be tricky too, because singers do this even more than speakers do. They drop sounds to fit the rhythm. So when you are listening, if you feel like a sound is missing, you are probably right. It is not you, it is the speaker, dropping a sound to be faster. I want to take a moment to talk about the importance of speed in your practice. I know many of you like to listen to slow English, and that is great for beginners. But if you want to understand normal spoken English, you have to challenge yourself with faster speeds. It is like training for a race. If you always walk, you will never be ready to run. You need to push your brain a little bit. If you are watching a video, you can sometimes speed it up to 1.25 speed, or just listen to content that is meant for native speakers, like this podcast or YouTube vlogs. At first, it will feel overwhelming. It will feel like a blur. But if you keep listening, your brain will actually physically change. It will build new connections to process those sounds faster. It is called neuroplasticity. Your brain is amazing and it adapts to what you ask it to do. If you ask it to process fast English every day, eventually, fast English will start to feel normal. And then, one day, you will be listening to someone and you will realize that you are not translating anymore. You are just understanding. It is a wonderful feeling and you will get there if you keep practicing. Let's try a listening exercise right now. I am going to tell a short story about my weekend. I am going to speak at a completely normal conversational speed. I will use reductions, linking, and all the things we talked about. I want you to listen for the main ideas. Do not worry if you miss a word. Just try to follow the story. Here we go. So, I decided to go to the mall yesterday because I needed to buy a gift for my brother. It was raining cats and dogs. Honestly, the weather was awful. I drove there, but the traffic was terrible. I should have taken the train. Anyway, I parked the car and ran inside. I went to that sports store on the second floor, you know the one? I looked at a bunch of jackets, but they were all way too expensive. I didn't want to spend that much money. In the end, I just bought him a coffee maker and a nice mug. I think he's going to love it. I was starving by the time I left, so I grabbed a burger on the way home. It was a pretty tiring day, but at least I got the shopping done. Okay, how was that? Did you catch the main points? I went to the mall, it was raining, traffic was bad. I looked at jackets, they were expensive. I bought a coffee maker, and I ate a burger. If you got those points, you understood perfectly. You didn't need to hear every the or is to get the story. Did you notice how I said it was raining cats and dogs? That is an idiom. It means it was raining very heavily. If you were translating that literally, you would be very confused. Why are there animals falling from the sky? But if you knew the context was weather and you heard raining, you could guess. Also, did you hear should've? I didn't say should have, I said should've, which sounds like should of me, and didn't wanna instead of did not want to. This is how we actually speak. The more you hear these stories, the more these patterns become second nature to you. Another tip that I think is really helpful is to mimic what you hear. This is called shadowing. When you listen to a podcast or a video, try to repeat exactly what the speaker says immediately after they say it. Copy their speed, their emotion, and their sound changes. If they say, "What you doing?" you say, "What you doing?" Don't say, "What are you doing?" Say it the way they said it. When you physically say the words in a fast, connected way, it helps you hear them better later. It connects your mouth and your ears. You understand better what you can say yourself. So don't just be a passive listener. Be an active listener. Talk back to the podcast. Repeat the phrases. It might feel silly sitting in your room talking to yourself, but it is one of the best ways to improve your listening skills quickly. You are training your muscles and your brain at the same time. Let's discuss some environmental factors too. Sometimes you can't understand not because your English is bad, but because of where you are. Noisy streets, bad phone connections, music in the background. All of these make listening harder. In these situations, native speakers also struggle. We say sorry or what was that all the time. So do not be afraid to ask for help. You can say polite phrases like, "Could you speak a little more slowly, please?" Or, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." This is not a failure. It is a normal part of communication. Actually, managing the conversation is a very advanced skill. If you can control the speed and the flow by asking questions, you will understand more and feel more confident. Do not just pretend to understand and nod your head. That leads to awkward situations later. Be honest, say, "I missed that last part. Could you repeat it?" People are usually happy to help. I also want to encourage you to listen to a variety of voices. Don't just listen to me. Listen to men, women, children, older people. People from different parts of the country or different countries. Accents vary wildly and pitch varies too. A deep voice might be harder to understand than a high voice. If you only listen to one teacher, you will get used to their specific rhythm and speed, and then you will be lost when you talk to someone new. Expose your ears to as much English as possible. Watch different types of shows. Watch the news, which is very clear and formal. Watch talk shows, which are fast and casual. Listen to audiobooks. The more variety you have, the more flexible your listening becomes. You will start to recognize that despite the differences in accent, the underlying rules of connected speech are usually the same. We all link words. We all reduce vowels. We just do it with different sounds depending on where we are from. Let's go back to the idea of chunking for a moment because it is so important. When you listen to a sentence, try to group words into meaningful blocks. For example, take the sentence, "Can you tell me where the nearest subway station is?" If you listen word by word, "Can you tell me where the nearest subway station is?" It is just a list of 10 words. But if you chunk it, it is, "Can you tell me?" That is one chunk, a request. Where the nearest subway station is, that is the second chunk, the information. When you listen in chunks, you remember more. Think about a phone number. If I give you the numbers 1995, it is harder to remember than if I say 19 and 95. Your brain likes groups. English sentences are the same. Group the small words with the big words. Tell me goes together. Subway station goes together. Listen for the groups of sound that carry the meaning together. This will help you process the sentence much faster because you are dealing with maybe 3 or 4 ideas instead of 10 separate words. We should also talk about the rhythm of English. English is a stress-timed language. That means some beats in a sentence are strong and loud, and others are weak and short. The beat falls on the important words, the content words. The grammar words are weak. Imagine you are walking. The strong words are the steps where your foot hits the ground hard. The weak words are the steps where your foot just glides. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. This rhythm is crucial for understanding. If you are listening for every word to have the same weight, like in some other languages, you will be waiting for sounds that aren't there. You have to ride the wave of the strong words and let the weak words just be there in the background. For example, I want to go to the movies. I want go, movies are strong. Two. The are weak, they are fast. I want to go to the movies. The rhythm is what carries the message. I want to give you one more complex example to wrap up this section. Let's look at the phrase, why don't you let me know if you need any help? That is a long sentence. Written down, it looks fine. Spoken quickly, it changes a lot. Why don't you becomes why don'tcha or why and cha. Let me becomes lemme. If you becomes if ya. Any often becomes any. So the whole thing sounds like wine cha lemme know if ya need any help. It sounds like one long string of noise until you know the code. But once you have heard lemme and if ya 100 times, your brain instantly recognizes them as let me and if you. You don't even think about it. This is the level of familiarity we are aiming for. You want these common reductions to be so familiar that they don't even register as strange anymore. They just sound like English. So, how do you get to that level? Consistency. You cannot listen for 5 hours once a week and expect to improve. You need to listen for 20 minutes every day, every single day. Make English a part of your routine. Listen while you cook. Listen while you drive. Listen while you walk the dog. You do not need to sit down and study intensely every time. Just getting your ears used to the sound of English is enough to keep the connections in your brain strong. It is like exercise. A little bit every day is better than a huge amount once a month. Your brain needs that daily repetition to move the information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. Be patient with yourself. It takes time, but if you are consistent, you will see results. I also want to remind you to have fun with this. Learning English is not just about passing tests or getting a job. It is about connecting with people. It is about watching movies without subtitles and understanding the jokes. It is about listening to music and understanding the lyrics. When you understand spoken English faster, a whole world opens up to you. You can enjoy podcasts, you can understand YouTube videos, you can travel with confidence. Focus on that reward. When you are listening and you get frustrated, just remember why you are doing this. Think about the moment you will have a smooth, easy conversation with a native speaker, and you won't feel tired or stressed. You will just be talking. That is the goal, and you are absolutely capable of reaching it. Before we finish today, I want to give you a quick homework assignment. I want you to find a piece of audio, a podcast episode, a YouTube video, or a news clip that is about 2 or 3 minutes long. Listen to it once without stopping. Just try to get the general idea. Then, listen to it a second time, but this time, pause every 30 seconds and try to say out loud what the main point was in that section. Don't worry about the exact words. Just summarize the meaning. Did they talk about sports? Did they talk about cooking? What happened? This trains your brain to focus on the big picture rather than getting stuck on the details. It is a fantastic exercise for intermediate learners because it forces you to guess and predict, which are skills we talked about earlier. I also want you to practice saying some of the reductions we learned today. Look in the mirror and say, I am going to go, as I'm gonna go. Say, do you want to come, as did you wanna come? Say give it to me as give it to me. Feel how your mouth moves. It is lazier. It is more relaxed. That is the feeling of natural English. Embrace that relaxation. You do not need to be tense and precise all the time. In fact, being too precise can make you harder to understand because it breaks the rhythm. Relax into the language. Now, I want to go a little deeper now into some specific sounds that I know cause a lot of headaches for learners. Have you ever noticed that when Americans speak, sometimes it sounds like they are swallowing their letters, especially the letter T? This is a huge key to understanding spoken English because the letter T in the middle of a word often changes completely. We call this the flap T, or sometimes it just disappears into a stop. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine the word water. If you say it slowly, it sounds like water with a clear T sound. But if you ask an American for a glass of water at a restaurant, they will almost always say waiter. It sounds exactly like the letter D. It sounds like waiter. The same thing happens with the word better. It becomes better. City becomes city. When your brain is listening for a sharp, crisp T sound, you might not recognize the word because it actually sounds like a D. So when you hear a word that sounds like it has a D in the middle, but you know it should be a T, just assume it is a T. This rule happens whenever the T is between two vowels, like in party, ladder, or butter. It is one of the most distinct features of the American accent, and getting used to this flap sound will instantly make you understand more words in conversation. Now, let's look at another way the letter T can be tricky. This is called the stop T. This happens when a T comes at the end of a word or right before another consonant. Instead of making a sharp sound with your tongue, you just stop the air and hold it for a second. It is like the sound is cut off. For example, take the phrase, I don't know. If I say it carefully, it is, I don't know. But naturally, I will stop the air on the T in don't and go straight to the N in know. It sounds like, I don't know. Or think about the word cat. If I say cat food, I don't say cat with a strong T. I say cat food. I stop the sound. This is very common in words like football, which becomes fooball, or script, which becomes script. If you are waiting to hear a release of air at the end of those words, you are going to be waiting a long time because it often isn't there. You have to listen for the silence or the stop rather than the sound. This helps you distinguish words better because it creates that rhythm of stress and unstress that we talked about earlier. The strong beat is the vowel, and the T just acts as a little stop sign, not a full sound. Moving on from letters to full words, I want to talk about something that might feel very annoying when you are trying to listen. I am talking about filler words. You know these sounds. Kind of. We use them all the time when we are thinking or when we don't know exactly what to say next. As a learner, you might think, why is this person saying like so much? It doesn't mean anything. And you are right. It doesn't add meaning to the sentence, but it adds a natural flow. However, for a listener, filler words can be distracting. They can break your concentration because your brain tries to process them as important vocabulary. The trick here is to train your brain to treat filler words as background noise, like static on the radio. If you hear, I was going to the store, just filter out the and Focus only on I was going to the store. Once you stop paying attention to the fillers, you will find that the sentence is actually much simpler than you thought. Do not let and make you lose the thread of the conversation. Just let them float past you and grab onto the real words. Another fascinating thing about listening is how we use pitch and intonation to show meaning. Sometimes the exact same sentence can mean two completely different things just by changing the tone of my voice. For example, if I say, "Oh, really?" with a flat voice, it might just mean I am acknowledging what you said. But if I say, "Oh, really?" with a high pitch at the end, it means I am surprised or I don't believe you. If I say it with a low pitch, "Oh, really?" it might mean I am disappointed or bored. As a listener, you are not just hearing words, you are hearing emotions. This is why listening to podcasts or watching movies is so much better than just reading textbooks. In a book, you see the words, but you have to guess the emotion. When you listen, you hear the happiness, the anger, the sarcasm, or the excitement. Paying attention to the music of the voice helps you understand the situation. If someone is speaking very fast and loudly, they might be excited or angry. If they are speaking slowly and quietly, they might be sad or tired. Using these emotional clues gives you context that helps you figure out words you might not know. I want to give you a specific example of how intonation changes a question versus a statement. Imagine I say, "You're coming to the party." If I drop my voice at the end on the word party, I am telling you, then you are coming. It is a fact. But if I raise my voice at the end, "You're coming to the party," it becomes a question. I am asking if it is true. This is called rising intonation. Many languages do this differently, but in English, we often use that rise in pitch to check for understanding or to ask a yes or no question. If you can hear that little jump in the voice at the end of a sentence, your brain instantly knows it is a question, even if you didn't understand every word in the sentence. It prepares you to give an answer. So listen for the melody. Is it going up or down? It is a subtle signal that tells you exactly what is happening in the conversation. Let's also touch on a very common pronunciation habit that confuses everyone, and that is how we say the combinations of would have, could have, and should have. Grammatically, we write have, but when we speak, we contract would have to would've, which sounds like would uv. Well, here is the confusing part. To many learners, would uv sounds exactly like would of. You might see people write it that way on the internet by mistake, but it is actually would have. So when you hear "I should have called you," your brain might be trying to translate should have, which makes no sense. You need to train your ear to recognize that a uv sound at the end of these words is actually have. I could have gone. I would have done it. It is never of. It is always the verb have being reduced down to a tiny little sound. If you can master this, you will understand so much more about the past tense when people are talking. It is a very frequent mistake, but now that you know the secret, you won't be tricked by it. We should also talk about what happens when words start with the sound H. In many languages, the H is always pronounced clearly. In English, especially in fast casual speech, we often drop the H at the beginning of pronouns and auxiliary verbs. For example, tell him becomes tell him. Ask her becomes ask her. What is he doing becomes what's he doing. The H just disappears. It blends into the previous word. This can be really hard if you are looking for the word he or him. You might hear a word that starts with a vowel and get confused because you are expecting a consonant. But if you listen for the context, you will know that asker must be ask her. There is no word asker that means the same thing, so use your logic. If the sentence is, I need to go to the store, and you hear I need to go, you know that ta is to. Don't let the dropped sounds scare you. They are just signs that the speaker is relaxed and comfortable with the language. I want to share another listening strategy with you that I call the focus and float method. When you are listening to a long piece of English, like a news report or a long story, it is impossible to focus 100% on every single word for 10 minutes. Your brain will get tired. Instead, you should focus intensely for a few seconds, then float for a few seconds. Focus hard when you hear a new name or a new topic. Try to catch those details. Then, let your brain relax a little bit during the descriptions or the connecting words. You are not turning your brain off. You are just saving your energy for the important parts. It is like driving a car. You focus intensely when you are at an intersection, but you relax a bit when you are driving down a straight, empty road. If you try to focus intensely the whole time, you will crash. So be kind to your brain. Allow it to rest a little bit between the important information. You will be surprised at how much you still catch, even when you are floating. Now let's try a practical exercise together. I'm going to describe a simple process like making a cup of tea, but I am going to use very fast, natural speech with reductions and linking. I want you to visualize the steps in your mind. Do not write anything down. Just make a movie in your head. Here's the sentence. First, you gotta boil some water, then put a tea bag in the mug and let it sit for a bit. Don't forget to take it out before it gets too bitter. Okay, let's break that down. You gotta means you have got to, or you must. For a bit means for a short time. Don't forget probably sounded like don't forget. The T in don't connected to the F in forget. And take it out probably sounded like take it out. If you saw a kettle boiling, a mug, a tea bag, and someone taking the bag out, then you understood perfectly. You understood the sequence of events without needing to parse every grammar rule. This is the power of visualization. Connecting the sounds directly to images in your mind is much faster than translating to words. Another area where listening gets difficult is with numbers and dates. Native speakers run these together so fast. For example, 150 does not sound like 6 separate words. It sounds like 150. The and gets reduced to n or Dates are even worse. October 21st becomes October 21st. The T in 20 blends into the F of first. When you're listening to information like this, it is okay to ask for confirmation. You can say, sorry, was that 15 or 50? Because they can sound very similar. Or, did you say the 21st? It is better to clarify than to make a mistake because of a sound change, but recognizing that numbers are also subject to reduction helps you be ready for them. Don't expect them to be slow and clear just because they are numbers. They are just words, and words get squashed together. I also want to encourage you to listen to things that are slightly above your level. I know I mentioned this before, but I want to emphasize it again. If you listen to something that is easy for you, you feel good, but you are not learning as much as you could. You need to challenge your ears. It is like lifting weights. If the weight is too light, your muscles don't grow. You need a weight that is a little bit heavy, a little bit hard to lift. When you listen to English that is fast and difficult, your brain struggles, and that struggle is where the learning happens. It might feel uncomfortable. You might feel like you are understanding only 50%. That is okay. Push through that discomfort. Listen to it again. Listen to it a third time. Slowly, that 50% will become 60%, then 70%. Do not be afraid of the hard stuff. Embrace the challenge because that is how you get to the next level. Let's talk about silent letters in spelling versus spoken English one more time because this is a big trap. English spelling is crazy. We keep letters in words that we haven't pronounced for hundreds of years. Take the word night. We don't say the K. We don't say the GH. It just sounds like night. But when you see the word written, your brain might want to pronounce all those letters. When you are listening, you have to forget the spelling. You have to listen only to the sounds. A great example is the word muscle. We spell it S-C-L-E, but we say muscle. The C is silent. If you are listening for a K or C sound, you won't find it. Train your ears to trust what you hear, not what you see on paper. This is why listening practice is so important. It breaks the bad habit of relying on spelling to pronounce words. I also want to mention that different people speak differently. I have a certain way of speaking, but your friend or a colleague might speak faster or slower, with a higher or lower voice. They might use different slang words. To be a good listener, you have to be adaptable. You cannot expect everyone to speak like your textbook or like your favorite podcast host. Real life is messy. People mumble. People chew gum while they talk. People talk over each other. This is the reality of English communication. The more you expose yourself to different voices, the better you will get at filtering through the mess to find the meaning. Watch interviews on YouTube. Watch reality TV where people talk over each other. It is chaotic, but it is great training for your ears. Let's do another quick listening test. I am going to say a sentence that uses a few idioms and reductions. I want you to guess the meaning based on the feeling. Here is the sentence. I'm beat. I think I'm going to hit the hay. Okay, if you listen literally, I am beat sounds like someone hit me, and hit the hay sounds like I am punching some dried grass. But if you listen to my tone, I am tired, right? I'm beat is an idiom that means I am very tired, and hit the hay means go to bed or go to sleep. So the sentence means I am tired, so I am going to sleep. If you were focusing on the word beat and hay, you would be totally lost. But if you felt the tiredness in my voice and used the context of the evening or finishing a long day, you could figure it out. Always look for the feeling behind the words first. The literal meaning often comes second in casual conversation. We are getting close to the end of this part of our lesson, and I really hope you are starting to feel more confident about your listening skills. Remember, understanding spoken English faster is a journey. It does not happen overnight. But if you pay attention to the little details like the flap T, the stop T, the schwa sound, and the way we link words, the language will start to open up for you. Do not be discouraged if you have a bad day where you feel like you understood nothing. That happens to everyone, even advanced speakers. Some days your brain is just tired. Just take a break and come back to it tomorrow. Consistency is the most important thing. A little bit every day is the secret sauce. Before we go, I want you to think about your own listening routine. Are you only listening to English when you study? Or do you have it on in the background while you are doing other things? Try to surround yourself with English sounds. Change the language settings on your phone or your computer to English. Listen to English music while you are cooking. Even if you aren't paying full attention, your brain is absorbing the rhythm and the melody of the language. This is called passive listening, and it supports your active listening practice. It builds a foundation that makes the active practice much easier. So fill your environment with English. Now, let's go deeper into some specific challenges. One thing that I think is often overlooked is how confusing similar sounding words can be. We call these minimal pairs. These are words that sound exactly the same except for one tiny sound, but that one sound changes the meaning completely. This can be a nightmare for listeners because if you miss that small difference, you might understand the opposite of what was said. For example, think about the words sheep and ship, or tree and three. To a native speaker, the difference is obvious, but when you are listening fast, those vowel sounds can get blurry. If someone says, "I saw a sheep in the field," but you hear ship, you might be very confused about why there is a boat in a field. The key to mastering this is not just listening with your ears, but often using your eyes. If you are face to face with someone, watch their mouth. When we say sheep, our lips stretch wide like a smile. When we say ship, our lips are more rounded. So, if you are ever in doubt, take a quick look at the speaker's mouth. It gives you a huge clue about which sound they are making. Another set of words that causes a lot of trouble are the words walk and work, or man and men. The vowel sounds shift just slightly, but often context is your savior here. If you hear the sentence, "I am going to walk to the store," and you mishear it as work, you might think the person is going to their job, but then the next part is to the store. You don't usually work to the store. You walk to the store. So your brain should be able to catch that little error and correct it automatically. This is why I always tell you not to get stuck on one word. Look at the whole sentence. If one word seems weird, ignore it for a second and look at the neighbors. They will tell you what the word really is. Listening is like solving a puzzle. Sometimes you have to look at the picture on the box to know where a piece goes. Let's move on to another challenge that I see a lot. This is about words that have way too many meanings. Think about a word like run. It can mean moving fast on your feet. It can mean operating a machine, like run a program. It can mean run out of something, meaning you have none left. It can mean a tear in your stocking, a run. It can mean managing a business, run a company. If you are listening to someone and they say, "I run a small business," but you only know run as the physical action of jogging, you are going to be very confused. You will picture a person jogging around a building. This is where expanding your vocabulary with phrases, not just single words, is so important. Don't just learn the word run. Learn run a business, run late, run into someone. When you learn these chunks, your brain recognizes the whole meaning at once. You don't have to analyze the word run. You just hear run late and you know it means being behind schedule. So when you are studying, try to learn words inside of phrases or sentences. It makes listening so much faster because you recognize the pattern immediately. I also want to talk a little bit about how we use the verb get. Oh my goodness, we use this word for everything. Get up, get down, to get over, get through, get a coffee, a get angry, a get married. It seems like get can mean any verb in the English language. When you are listening, get is often just a signal that an action is happening. The important word is usually the small word that comes after it, the preposition. Get up means stand. Get over means recover. Get through means finish. So if you hear get, don't panic. Just wait a split second for the next word. Get plus coffee equals drink/buy. Get plus married equals wedding. It is a chameleon word. It changes its color to match the situation. So train your ears to focus on the word following get, and the meaning will usually become clear. Now, let's talk about a very real situation. What do you do when someone speaks way too fast? Sometimes you meet people who are just motor mouths. They talk a mile a minute and you feel like you are drinking from a fire hose. It is overwhelming. First, take a deep breath. Do not panic. Panic shuts down your brain. When someone is speaking too fast, you have to become a hunter. You cannot catch every word, so you have to hunt for the most important words. The nouns, the verbs, the names. If you catch those, you can usually reconstruct the meaning. Also, it is perfectly okay to be honest. You can smile and say, "I love your energy, but you are talking a little fast for me. Could you slow down just a tiny bit?" Most people will apologize and slow down immediately. They don't realize they are doing it. It is not rude to ask. In fact, it shows that you are really trying to understand them, which is a compliment. Another trick for fast talkers is to ask them to repeat what they said, but maybe in a different way. You can say, "I missed that last part, could you say it again?" Or, "What was that about?" This gives them a chance to rephrase it, perhaps using simpler words or a slower speed. Listening is a two-way street. You are not just a passive receiver. You are an active participant in the conversation. You can control the flow. If you get lost, or jump in and steer the ship back to calmer waters. Do not just sit there drowning in the noise. Speak up. It is the best way to keep the conversation going and to learn. I want to give you a specific technique to practice at home called shadowing, but with a twist. We talked about repeating after the speaker, but now I want you to try to speak with the speaker. Find a podcast or a video with a transcript. Listen to a sentence, read the transcript, and understand what it means. Then play the audio again and try to say the words at the exact same time as the speaker. Don't wait for them to finish. Speak along with them. Match their speed. Match their pauses. Match their emotion. This is incredibly difficult at first, but it is the best workout for your listening brain. It forces you to stop translating because you don't have time. You have to just make the sound. When you can produce the sound at the same speed, you will find that hearing it becomes effortless. It connects your brain and your mouth in a powerful way. Try it for just 5 minutes a day, and you will see a huge difference in your ability to keep up with fast English. Let's discuss a bit about listening for opinions versus facts. In English, we often use polite phrases to give an opinion so we don't sound too aggressive. If you are listening for a simple fact like, "The sky is blue," that is easy, but opinions are trickier. We use phrases like, "I reckon," "It seems to me," "If you ask me," or "As far as I know." These are signals that what follows is not a proven fact, it is just a thought. If you are listening to a discussion or a debate, hearing these phrases is crucial. It tells you, okay, this is just their perspective. If you miss these phrases, you might think they are stating a fact, and you might get confused about why someone else disagrees. For example, "I reckon it's going to rain." That is an opinion. "It is raining" is a fact. Listening for these little markers helps you understand the certainty of what is being said. It helps you navigate the social dynamics of the conversation. Now, I want to touch on something that is a bit more advanced, and that is understanding humor and sarcasm. This is often the final frontier for English learners. Sarcasm is when someone says the opposite of what they mean, usually with a specific tone of voice. If it is raining heavily and someone looks out the window and says, "Oh, wonderful weather," with a flat or bitter tone, they mean the weather is actually terrible. If you listen only to the word wonderful, you will think they are happy. But your brain has to process the tone and the context, the rain, to understand the true meaning. This is hard because it requires you to think quickly and consider the situation. Humor often relies on wordplay or puns, which are very difficult if you don't know the double meanings of words. Don't worry if you don't get the joke right away. Even native speakers sometimes don't get a joke if they don't know the reference. But try to pay attention to the reaction of other people. If everyone laughs, assume it was a joke. You can even ask, "I didn't get that. Could you explain the joke?" Most people love explaining a joke because it makes them feel funny. It is a great learning opportunity. Another aspect of listening that gets ignored is the power of silence. In some cultures, silence is awkward. In English conversations, we do pause, but the length of the pause matters. A short pause usually means the person is thinking and hasn't finished yet. A long silence can mean they are uncomfortable, or they are waiting for you to say something, or perhaps the conversation is over. Learning to listen to the silence is just as important as listening to the words. If you jump in too quickly during a short pause, you might interrupt the person, which is rude. If you wait too long during a long silence, it can get awkward. This is part of the rhythm of conversation we talked about. You have to feel the beat. When the music stops for a second, is it the end of the song or just a rest? Listening for these cues takes practice and social awareness, so pay attention to how people interact in movies or TV shows. Watch how they take turns speaking. Let's do a little exercise on prediction again because it is such a powerful tool. I am going to start a sentence and I want you to try to finish it in your mind before I say it. This simulates a real conversation where you are constantly guessing what comes next. Ready? I was going to cook dinner, but I was too tired, so I just ordered. What did you guess? Probably pizza, food, or takeaway. The context was cooking and being tired. The logical conclusion is ordering food. If I said I ordered a new car, it would be surprising, right? It wouldn't fit the context. When you are listening, constantly make these predictions. If the speaker says something that fits your prediction, great, your understanding is confirmed. If they say something unexpected, your brain wakes up and pays attention. This keeps you engaged and helps you follow the flow much better than just passively hearing sounds. I also want to encourage you to listen to English that has no visual aids. We love watching videos with subtitles, and even I enjoy watching movies, but listening to audio without pictures forces your brain to work harder. When you watch a video, you can guess the meaning from hand gestures, facial expressions, and the scenery. When you listen to a podcast or an audiobook, you only have your ears. This is pure listening training. It is like lifting heavy weights without a machine. It builds your listening muscles faster. So try listening to a mystery story or a podcast episode where you can't see the speakers. Imagine the scene in your head. It is like reading a book, but with your ears. It strengthens your ability to visualize from sound alone, which is the ultimate goal of listening comprehension. We should also briefly mention different accents. Up until now, I have been speaking with a standard American accent, which is probably what you are most used to hearing in movies and music, but the English-speaking world is huge. There are British accents, Australian accents, Canadian accents, Irish accents, and hundreds more. Each one has its own rules for pronunciation and speed. For example, in some British accents, the R sound at the end of words like car or water is often dropped. So car sounds like caw. If you are waiting for that R sound, you might miss the word. The best way to get used to this is exposure. Don't just listen to American media. Watch a British TV show like The Office UK version or an Australian movie. At first, it will sound like a completely different language, but if you listen regularly, your brain will figure out the patterns. You will start to understand that CA is car. It is just a different accent of the same language. Do not be afraid of accents. Embrace them as variety. Another helpful tip is to focus on collocations when listening. Collocations are words that naturally go together. We say fast food, not quick food. We say make a mistake, not do a mistake. We say take a photo, not do a photo. When you listen, you will start to hear these pairs together all the time. If you hear a word that sounds like do, followed by mistake, your brain might flag it as weird because we don't say that. But more importantly, when you hear make, your brain might anticipate mistake, or a decision, or friends. Learning these word partnerships helps you predict what is coming next. It is like knowing the dance steps. If I step left with my left foot, you know my right foot is coming next. Words dance in the same way. They follow patterns. The more you listen, the more you will learn these steps. Let's talk about the challenge of background noise. In the classroom, or when you listen to this podcast, the audio is usually clear, but real life is noisy. You might be at a bar, a restaurant, or a busy street. There is music, clattering dishes, and traffic. This masking makes it much harder to distinguish consonants, which are higher pitched and quieter than vowels. In noisy places, we rely heavily on vowels. So if you are in a loud place and you hear AI, you have to guess. Was it kit, cat, cut? The context is your only hope. This is why people often lean in when they are trying to listen in a noisy place. It is not just to hear better, it is to focus. If you find yourself in a noisy environment and you are struggling, it is okay to say, "It is very loud here. Let's move to a quieter corner." Or simply ask the person to speak up. Don't spend the whole time nodding and smiling when you have no idea what is being said. Take control of the environment if you can. I want to share a thought about anxiety. Many of you get very anxious when you know you have to speak or listen to English. Your heart beats faster, your hands get sweaty, and your mind goes blank. This is a natural physical reaction called fight or flight. Unfortunately, it is terrible for learning. When you are anxious, your brain releases chemicals that actually block your ability to process language. You might know the English perfectly well, but in that moment of panic, you can't access it. The best way to fight this is preparation and exposure. The more you listen, the more confident you become. Confidence reduces anxiety. Also, realize that it is okay to make mistakes. It is okay to not understand. No one is going to judge you. In fact, most people appreciate that you are learning their language. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and tell yourself, "I am going to catch the main idea, and that is enough." Lowering the pressure on yourself actually helps you perform better. As we start to wrap up this lesson, I want to remind you about the importance of enjoying what you listen to. If you force yourself to listen to news reports about economics and you find economics boring, you will hate it and you will stop doing it. Find topics you love. Do you love cooking? Listen to a cooking podcast in English. Do you love video games? Listen to gamers talk about their strategies on YouTube or Twitch. Do you love fashion? Listen to fashion vlogs. When you are interested in the topic, your brain pays attention much better. You are motivated to understand because you want to know the information. You aren't just studying English, you are learning about the world through English. That is the best way to learn. It stops feeling like work and starts feeling like a hobby. So find your passion and listen to that. We have covered so many strategies today, from watching lips for minimal pairs to hunting for keywords in fast speech, from shadowing to understanding sarcasm. It is a lot to take in, but please remember, you do not need to master all of this tomorrow. Pick 1 or 2 strategies that resonated with you and practice them this week. Maybe you will focus on shadowing, or maybe you will focus on listening to the silence and the tone. Whatever you choose, just stick with it. Listening is a marathon, not a sprint. It is about building endurance and accuracy over time. Every time you listen to this podcast or watch a video or talk to a friend, you are adding another brick to your foundation. Eventually, that foundation will be strong enough to support anything. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode of English in Advance has helped you feel more confident about your listening skills. Remember, understanding spoken English faster is not a secret talent that some people have and others don't. It is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned and it can be practiced with the right tools. Focus on connected speech. Focus on the rhythm. Stop translating and listen every day. You are doing better than you think. I am Jessica, and I am so proud of your progress. If you enjoyed this lesson, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new episode. And if you have a friend who is also trying to learn English, share this podcast with them. Learning together is always more fun. I will see you next time with another great lesson to help you advance your English. Take care and happy listening.